If you're doing one of these three things, you're definitely bad at the format. There's no way for me to sugarcoat it. These mistakes can simply cost you games and you may not even realize that you're doing that. So stick around for the end of the video because you'll see all three mistakes that we'll go over. I've been actually meaning to make this video for a while now. It's because I've been talking to a lot of my friends about this and it's just something that should not happen at certain level of play. Now I understand of course that people play for fun. I mean there's times where I go to locals and I don't really care if I become first or last. I really don't care. I go play with friends and have some fun. And of course in that context it's completely fine to just play whichever way you want. But some of these things that I'm going to mention really have no place in a competitive setting. So there's no reason for you to be doing these things if you're actually competing and actually trying to win the prize, whatever that is. Now, before we get into it, if you like content like this, please like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. And if you want to support me further, there's Patreon in the description, so you can check that out. Now let's get into it. So the first issue with people's gameplay that I have is often they just simply talk too much. They just don't know when to stop talking. When they draw and they draw bad, they start complaining, or there's multiple of situations like this. It's just simply not good to do. The opponent might set a few back row, they just say, oh, I wish I had heavy or like top deck heavy or something. They just talk too much and they give away too much information. A good opponent will always read into that, and I have killed people so many times through a bunch of back row that they had because they just simply were talking too much and gave away too much information. Like if you start complaining that you bricked, no one's going to take you seriously. No one's going to take your hand seriously. People are going to make aggressive pushes into you, and there's just no reason for you to expose yourself like that. So an important tip is just to stay quiet, normal summon, prio, effect, pitch, pass turn, draw. You need to use the vocabulary that is provided by the Yu-Gi-Oh guidelines, by the way to play the game, and you don't need to go into all of these other side discussions about what could have happened, should have happened, and how your game's looking like how's your opponent sacking you. This might be a way to relieve some emotions from the previous match, or you might be already tilted and you start talking too much and yapping. There's really no reason for this. In a competitive setting where you're playing for prizing, any information you give to your opponent, they will use it and abuse it. So just make sure to keep your mouth shut and give as least information as possible. So many times it happens, okay, I have a monster and 2 cards, my opponent's on 2 cards, and my monster's pretty big, and they go like, oh, Yu-Gi-Oh, top deck. That means in these 2 cards they don't have an out to my, I don't know, beat stick on board. So I know they don't have an out. So the 1 card that they draw, if it's an out, okay. So, but if it's an out, I might judgment it, and that's it. They don't have an out anymore because they were doing all of these like extra things to show off how they actually don't have an out. It kind of gets silly at some point. And just even making faces or making a sigh after you draw a card is a lot. It's a lot of information to someone who's looking to hear that information, right? Like if you're going for a push and they sigh on their top deck, like, so that's why it's always important to like keep a poker face, make sure you are actually like, sometimes I straight up brick, I don't have anything. Like when I was playing Gigaplant, I just draw like a bunch of like equip spells, and it's like I drew the most broken hand, just bluff gores or something, you know? Like you cannot just sigh and be like, yo, this is ridiculous. Yo, I need to shuffle better. How does this happen to me every time? Like they're never gonna respect your hand, ever. Okay, so now that we learned how not to talk, now we have to start thinking. So in that sense, we need to start remembering the cards that people show us from their hand. So many times people dust shoot, they resolve a dust shoot, they knock out a card, turn after they don't know the hand. Happens all the time. Or they deck dev, and then like after the turn, you show them the hand, and after they forget. Happens so many times. Like in fact, in one game recently, I have shown Heavy Storm to my opponent, and like the opponent said 2 next turn, and then I activated Heavy, and he was like, "Oh yeah, but I forgot. I was looking at the monsters and stuff." Like these things happen a lot, and like they just cost you games. Like resolving Heavy on 2 back rows is so good. It's so strong. It's game winning oftentimes. So it's really really important to remember the cards in hand. A lot of players online they play on DB and they type out a hand in the chat log, But this is sometimes good for, of course, online. You can remember, you can reference it. But it's sometimes not bad because it doesn't train your muscles, it doesn't train your brain for remembering such cards. And the tip that I use and things I've said to many people is just usually at the start of every turn, I just remind myself what I know. So that can be also reads, what reads I have on back row. Like if I summon the monster into like a monster bigger than 1500 last turn, that should be bottomless. If it wasn't, I just, in the draw phase, I just think to myself, okay, probably not bottomless. I've dust shooted them. I know, I don't know, Pot of Avarice. I know uh, Red Med, and I know Blue Eyes, and then I proceed with my turn. This is really, really important because otherwise, like, why are you playing Dust Shoot? The most important part of it is just to know the cards in hand so you can play through it. Deck dev the same. Like people just flip deck dev, hope to discard the hand, and when they don't, they just go on tilt and they forget the cards in hand. When the more valuable part is actually the hand knowledge. So this is something very, very important to consider. And I feel like if you don't do this, you might want to start doing this because otherwise you shouldn't be playing such powerful cards. So regarding Dust Shoot, it's not that it's just a 1-for-1. Or regarding Deck Dev, it's not that it's like a 2-for-2, hopefully. Like you would chain it to something and then probably knock something out. It's the fact that you get hand knowledge. Like when I play against better players, when they dust shoot me or deck dev me, they play perfectly around everything and it feels so unwinnable. The game feels so unwinnable, it's ridiculous. Because they perfectly play around everything, and then the new cards that I draw are just discounted for because it's like one out of the other five. So they play around the other five, and the one I draw, it's pretty irrelevant in that sense. So they just play around all the cards they know, and it feels so bad to me as someone who got dust shooted or deck devved. And it's then funny to see how some worse players just don't really use this at all. Like they dust shoot you and then they forget, and it's like you just traded 1-for-1 a card, which is like fine at that point, right? Like if they don't know the hand, it's so much better for you. So yeah, this is something very important to keep in mind. So the third thing, and the most important one for me actually, is just don't play for your opponent. So imagine a situation where your opponent is in battle phase, they have two monsters, one is 1800, the other one is, I don't know, 1200. You attack with the 1200 monsters, and they take 3k, like the addition of the two. Just they assume the attack, they don't bluff anything, and they effectively played for me because now I don't have to declare an attack in a sense of playing into danger because they're going to take it anyways. And maybe I wouldn't even have actually attacked with that one. Maybe I'm scared of some back row. Maybe I'm scared to run into Gores. But bad players, they just take it all. They just say, oh yeah, how much is that? Okay, that's 18, 12, 14. I take 44. Yeah, okay. Like in that sense. Or they just like add it up in their thing. Like they just add up all the monsters. And it's like, you need to let your opponent declare the attack in order to actually like put it in. So I don't know why people try to rush these things. Maybe if you're like, again, casually, I guess it's all fine. But if maybe there's a clock, like you're running into time potentially, but I don't see a reason why you would do that. It just simply doesn't make sense to me. And there's so many times where you can just bluff Gores, bluff Trag, bluff a back row. There's so many times where actually it just works. Like people just don't attack. They don't swing into you like all that crazy. So there's no reason for you to just accept the attack even before it's declared. It just doesn't make any sense. Sometimes just feel confident enough to say, yeah, which one you attacked first? Okay. Yeah, that one's fine. Just people just don't attack like sometimes. If you just word it like that. So there's this extreme of just taking the attacks like it's nothing and just bluffing Gores all the time, or like a trap or something. And like it's better to be on the other extreme because on the other extreme you might win some games for free. That's all I'm saying. So yeah, that would be it. I hope you liked the discussion video like this, and if you did, leave it in the comment section, leave me some sort of review or tell me how you felt about this kind of video. And if you want to support the channel further, of course, there's a subscribe button, but there's also Patreon. And for people who play Blackwings, there's also a side deck guide that I just released. It's been received pretty well. I've actually got a lot of nice feedback on it, so that's always good. And in any case, I hope you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.